Alrighty, peeps. Day 26. I'm actually at my beach spot this morning. There's nobody here. Took a video of it. It's what, Wednesday? Wednesday morning at like 8. There's literally not one person. It's just amazing. I have some really good questions today. I'm really excited to get into a lot of conversation around the topics of abundance and scarcity lately, around the topics of inspiration and motivation. And I just wanted to do my little reflection on inspiration and mostly inspiration today. So let's get into it. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Appreciate you as always. So 3 questions today. Where does my inspiration come from and why is that significant or important? What is the difference between motivation and inspiration? And how do I sustain my inspiration? How do I sustain my inspiration? So first and foremost, where does my inspiration come from and why is it important? My inspiration comes from my connection to myself and then others. The slight pulls, floating thoughts, and magical moments. It comes from my love of life, my desire to show what I see, how I think, what I know. It comes from my beliefs that I can and will do good, and that my fear over being experienced by the world, this, will be overcome by my courage to love and live, which literally as I speak, that's exactly what's happening. It's so beautiful, I don't even care. Ouch. Alright, ow. Immediately get pinched in the butt. Okay. Inspiration comes from my soul. I can feel it now. A deep knowing, a quiet seeing, an immortal awareness. And it feels strong, connected, joyful, and wise. It's my connection to spirit, inspiration, in spirit, that brings the sauce. And that is the course I follow. In spirit, inspiration. Inspiration comes from I want to read this line one more time. The courage to love and live. Inspiration comes from my soul. I can feel it now. A deep knowing, a quiet seeing, and immortal awareness. Maybe you've experienced or felt that. If so, you felt the heartbeat of inspiration. What is the difference between inspiration and motivation? In my opinion, inspiration is the burning fire, and motivation is trying to restart the fire after it's gone out. Think of it as like inspiration is the fire that's always sustained. Even the coals are always burning. Versus motivation is the fire's out and we're trying to like start something, or we're having to use something to start the fire that should be naturally built and sustained by our own breath, our own life, our own desire to live. This is actually a really important topic, so I want to make a podcast about this. This is huge. We need to go into this. Okay. Trying to restart the fire after it's gone out. Most wait until the fire of inspired action is out before we get back to it. Because of the fear that I feel over the inspired action that I feel called to take, I let it go out, and then I have to figure out how to get it back. Right? That right there is the opposite of what we want to do. We just want to follow the inspired action, even if it makes me feel fearful, trusting that I'll have enough courage to overcome it when I get there, and practicing that action. Like, I feel really nervous, I feel scared to do something, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. I feel nervous, scared, I'm going to do it anyway. Before we get back to it, it's here and now. Motivation is something we fill in for the lack of inspiration, the lack of connection, the lack of purpose, the lack of belief, which is why it's so much harder to do things without it. It is so hard to do things without inspiration. Like, for myself specifically, when I don't have the inspiration to do something, my first instinct is to revert back to the things that will give me energy or borrow energy from things. For example, like back in the day, if I didn't feel like I wanted to go to the gym and I genuinely desired to, I would take pre-workout. I'd force myself to do things, forced energy consumption, to have forced action. That's not inspiration. It's way harder that way, and that's the thing that beats us down. Motivation is doing things because I'm supposed to or I should, out of shame, out of guilt, out of lack, out of scarcity. Inspiration is doing something because it feels correct, aligned, desired, good for me. inspired. It's the deeper understanding of why I am doing something that makes the difference. Motivation has been sold to you. Inspiration is your soul duty. Sold to you, soul duty. Sold to you, soul duty. Okay? There's a lot in that. I'll read a little bit of that again. Motivation is doing things because I'm supposed to or I should do. Shame, guilt, fear, scarcity. Inspiration is doing something because it feels correct, aligned, desired, good for me, healthy, natural. It's the deeper understanding of why I am doing something that makes the difference. Motivation has been sold to you. Inspiration is your soul duty. Connect within, experience throughout. It all starts with you first, presence, peace, and power. Man, the difference between inspiration and motivation is deep. But I think, like I said, the main visual you can get is this fire that you're sustaining and tending to and keeping alive versus this fire that's out, and now we have to pour kerosene, we have to use gasoline, we have to use fire starters, we have to borrow energy that isn't ours. And people wonder, well, what happens when my motivation goes away? We're so disconnected as a species that we actually don't know how to refine inspiration. We don't even know what we're feeling into, and that's the problem. We're not feeling. We're thinking about how to get it instead of feeling into what feels good and riding that wave all the way into shore. I need to clip that. That's the truth, okay? It's the truth. You can argue with it all you want, but it's the truth. How do I sustain inspiration? I sustain inspiration by flowing with my life, connecting to myself daily, and taking the initiative to do more things that align with me each day. Seasons matter, and at times the inspiration may feel hidden. Reconnection is needed as new evolution is coming. Patience, practice, persistence, prosperity. Sustaining inspiration is really sustaining your spirit. Get off my hand. I'm trying to get by you right now, respectfully, of course. Inspiration is really sustaining your spirit, letting everything come naturally and staying on the path versus trying to force myself to do things that aren't for me. A lot of people are not inspired with their lives, so they use motivation, forced energy, like caffeine, etc., to get themselves to do things they aren't inspired to do. This should be thought about deeply. How do I sustain inspiration? I sustain inspiration by tending to my inner fire, tending to my inner flame, consistently finding and following that path that's for me, that feels correct, that feels aligned, that feels good, that feels healthy, and staying away from forced energy, forced things, forced moments, forced supplements to get me to do stuff that I already don't want to do. I think this brings up this larger topic of a lot of people are going through this because they're simply not living the life that they want to live, and they have chosen to put themselves in position to have to use force to get through things. So if this is hitting you right now, you might need the wake-up call of changing your life. It may come to you very suddenly that you need to change everything. Everything needs to change. It doesn't mean you change everything all of a sudden. It means that we change slowly. We start with one thing. Start with one thing that inspires you. Maybe it's getting back in the gym and working on yourself physically. Maybe it's getting your mind right and working on yourself mentally. Maybe it's getting involved in sacred connection, whatever that means to you, and choosing to really nourish yourself on a deeper spiritual level, emotional level. Right? Maybe it's all of those things. You need to figure out where to start and get back to getting that fire cooking, fire burning. And once it's there, it's not so hard to tend to. It just requires consistent awareness of, man, my fire feels low. I need to reconnect with me. My fire feels high. Let me enjoy that heat. My fire feels in the middle. Let me ride that wave. And we get practice. It's a practice. Tending to the spirit, tending to inspiration is a practice. And if you can learn to do it, your life will be so fun. And that's the best word for it, fun. I think it can be fun. It is for me. And I feel really inspired. I mean, I'm literally sitting in a parking lot behind a tree. Some people are out now, of course. And I just feel really excited to make this video because I know it's going to impact some of you in a really positive way. And I'm going to make a podcast about this because this topic is really juicy, and I'm getting more clarity on really how it works for me and what I see in people. So if you read this and you realize that you're forcing everything in life and you have no motivation because there's nothing to be motivated, there's nothing to be inspired about, and you have to rely on motivation for everything because it's not the life you want to live, then you have to make changes. Something's got to change. Even if it hurts. It's going to hurt, by the way. That's okay. In the beginning, it hurts. Later, it feels good. In spirit, inspiration, motivation. Motive. What's the motive, right? And even just saying it, motive. What's the motive? What is the reasoning? I have to think about it versus I am it. So that's everything you know. Presence, peace, and power be with all of you, my friends. As always, I recommend a physical journal. I recommend a pencil. I recommend a quiet place to reflect. And I recommend that you do this right away. I recommend that you choose to reconnect with yourself first. Find the inspiration, tend to the fire, and then let it burn. Good for me. Maybe be good for you. Presence, peace, and power be with all of you. Let's just find a way. Stay tuned for the podcast on this, by the way.